welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 101 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 27 of A Clash of Kings, that's Daenerys 2.
As always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you, and hopefully we'll provide you with some entertainment along the way.
We will summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the TV show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes, they'll provide some additional information about the characters and places in this chapter. Be particularly helpful if you're not reading along. How are you, Mackelly?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you again.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
From a distance.
Yeah, we're remote again.
Yes.
Yes, I had a week in the mountains, and I hear it was very hot here while I was gone.
Yes, it was. Very hot.
So it was nice to be in the mountains where it was a bit cooler.
Yeah.
We did some whitewater rafting. And
all right.
Put it around on a boat, and I did some wakeboarding, and I did some face planting.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the face planting. You got that in?
No injuries this time, but
all right.
a few significant wallops on the surface of the water.
I thought you guys weren't bringing a boat this time.
We weren't, but the house came with one.
Oh, well, la-dee-da. Aren't you fancy?
Mm-hmm.
Running a house with a boat.
The house was nice. We were like, ooh, let's see how much this house would be worth. And we were like, ooh, $1.5 million.
Oh.
We can only stay here for 1 week, and then we have to leave.
Then they're going to kick us out.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But we had a good time.
Oh, good. Yeah, you have to share some pictures. Send me some. I'll put them up on the Instagram or social medias.
That. There's pictures of me actually vertical on a wakeboard for taken quickly before I was horizontal and no longer on a wakeboard.
Fast shutter speed.
Exactly.
Well, that's good. Yes, we both finished our summer vacations, known summer vacations anyway, major ones. So,
yeah. Unless
you've got another one coming up.
No, I don't. I had 368 unread email yesterday morning. I've decided to farm them out, one a day for a year.
There you go. Yeah, good idea. Just can't take any more time off, or it'll start the clock over again. Well, I have a tiny little bit of news regarding Stacey and Indian food.
Oh, exciting.
Remember, I've told you all before that Stacey doesn't like Indian food, and I've been trying for decades to convince her otherwise, because I know if she would try it, she'd like it. Of course, I don't have the influence over her to get her to ever try anything she doesn't want to do. So she had a work dinner that was at an Indian restaurant called Xaro. And so she was all stressed about it. She's like, what am I going to eat? There's nothing for me to eat, because she doesn't like certain things. And I was like, well, when you go there, tell the waiter, or you don't like these things, what would you recommend? So that's what she did. There was another doctor there that was also Indian, so she helped Stacey navigate the menu, and between the waiter and this other lady, they managed to pull together a meal that, guess what? She loved it. She loved it.
Uh-huh.
She loved it. So
was it really specific? Was it burger and fries?
Yes, that's what she got the kids menu and got the burger and fries. I honestly don't even know what it was. I can't even tell you.
Can she? I mean, could she order it again if she went to another Indian restaurant?
I would bet, because she'll probably only order that knowing that it's one thing she likes. So I think it's just the beginning of a beautiful relationship with Indian food.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's a crack in the dam.
Yeah, that's
the dam will burst from here. All right. Well, in my absence, you managed to put together a boatload of notes. So let's get down to business. How did we leave Daenerys Targaryen? Last time we saw Dany, she had burned Khal Drogo and Mirri Maz Duur and birthed 3 dragons in the fire. Due to the dragons, she managed to keep a meagre khalasar around her. She then followed the comet east into the Red Waste, and after a long, hard march where she lost many of her remaining flock, the khalasar found an abandoned city they dubbed Vaes Tolorro. While recuperating, she sent out her blood riders, and Jogo returned from exploring with 3 strangers from the city of Qarth. Mackelly, why don't we give them the summary of this one?
Okay. Dany and her khalasar ride through the gates of the thrice-walled city of Qarth to much fanfare from the Qarthine people. The city is colorful and vibrant. The people are elegantly dressed and all have a highborn look to them, leaving Dany feeling shabby and barbaric by comparison. As Pyat Pree leads the caravan through the crowded, opulent streets of the city, he and Xaro and Daxos begin to squabble over Dany's attention.
Pree wants Dany to come with him to the House of the Undying and meet with the Undying ones. Xaro, on the other hand, wants Dany to come to his palace, enjoy the top-notch amenities, and be visited by the 13, along with the upper crust of Qarthian society. Dany isn't having the squabbling. She isn't interested in being wined and dined. If the Great of Qarth want to give her gifts, they can do so in the form of ships and swords to help her win back the Iron Throne.
Later, at Xaro's expansive palace, the two men make final overtures before she sends them away. Quaithe, the third member of the triumvirate, gives Dany only one-word warning before she departs. She tells Dany to beware. When questioned about of whom she should beware, Quaithe answers, all. Thankfully, she expounds a little beyond this, saying that all will come to see the dragons and leave jealous, because the dragons are fire made flesh, and fire means power. Once the three escorts have left, an unsettled Dany sends Xaro to explore the city and find out what Pree doesn't want her to see. She sends Ser Jorah to the docks in search of news from Westeros.
With the men now gone, Dany strips and relaxes in a pool. Before long, she begins ruminating on thoughts of home and the Red Keep. She thinks of the Catch-22 situation involved in her conquering her homeland. Before Drogo died, she envisioned him sweeping away the Westerosi armies with his khalasar. But as she thinks on it now, Dothraki sack cities and slaughter their inhabitants. They don't rule, and she doesn't want to rule over a destroyed kingdom. But it doesn't matter now that Drogo's gone. She lacks the force to conquer regardless.
The thoughts make her unsettled once again. But she decides that what will be will be. She'll either be led to a path to reclaim her throne or she won't. And she hopes she's wise enough to follow the right turns in the path in front of her to get where she wants to go. That evening, Jorah returns with a guest. A Summer Islander sea captain named Kohuru Mo has news from Westeros. The usurper Robert Baratheon is dead. The details of how are sketchy, but all variants of the news have a common theme that Robert has died and his son Joffrey reigns. Dany's mood improves dramatically at hearing this.
Her spirits are lifted further when he tells her that the usurper's cronies, Stark, Lannister and Baratheon brothers, are fighting with each other. She's so moved by this that she tells the man to visit her on the Iron Throne when he returns to Westeros. After Kohuru leaves, Jorah cautions her about telling people of her plan to reclaim the throne, as this man will spread the news far and wide. Dany doesn't care. Robert is dead. Jorah points out that not all sailors' tales are true, and regardless, Joffrey now sits the throne in his father's place. Nothing has changed. Dany disagrees. The Seven Kingdoms, once a strong unified force, are now in chaos, just like Drogo's khalasar after he died. When Jorah responds that High Lords always fight each other, she tells him she's no longer a child, and that though dragons, like her brother Rhaegar, can die, so can dragon slayers.
Right. All true.
Yep. So not an awful lot happens in this chapter, to be honest.
No.
They arrive in Qarth, and we get quite a lot of description of Qarth. Yeah, that's
yes. It seems very nice. At least the parts that Dany has seen seem very fancy.
And it is interesting of her to send Xaro, was it, to find out the parts of the city that she didn't see, which I think is an interesting thought.
Yeah.
But I don't think necessarily Pyat Pree was trying to misguide her. I would imagine that any city that has sort of like a civic pride, and clearly Qarth has civic pride,
right, would
create an entryway which is resplendent and spectacular for any visitor, not just for Daenerys. The scabby bits will be hidden out of view, you know.
I think that's true of people's houses as well.
Possibly.
When guests come over, very often all the things laying around get shoved into closets and into rooms that they don't expect the guests to be in. So I think that's probably human nature. But yes, Qarth is described as beautiful, and she describes lots of vibrant colors, and she mentions there's kids wearing nothing but paint and golden sandals, I think, throwing flowers or something in front of them as they're entering the city, and the adults are wearing fancy clothes, and there's very opulent fancy buildings and fountains and lots of birds of color. It's is she even thinks that all the color that was missing from Vaes Tolorro has showed up here in Qarth.
Right, because that whole place was sun-bleached and sort of white.
Yes.
Bone white, yeah.
Yes, and I mean, if you think back, it's not even there that all this activity and color was missing. She was in the Red Waste before that, and out on the Dothraki Sea before that, so... Yeah.
I was thinking about that a little bit, actually. It's been a long time since Dany has been anywhere with a roof over her head, basically. I mean,
right.
She's, since Pentos, since she got married, basically, she's been on the move. I mean, she was in Vaes Dothrak, which is relatively nice, but still, it's Dothraki. It's not going to be a fancy palace like Illyrio Mopatis or Xhoan.
Xaro, Xhoan, Daxos.
Xaro, Xhoan, Daxos.
We could call him XXD.
XXD, can we? That would be good.
That's what I put in the notes for it. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I was thinking about that when she was relaxing in that pool. I was thinking, this is probably the first time since she left Illyrio Mopatis' manse in Pentos that she's been able to just like do something like relax in a pool.
We know she did get immersed in water in Vaes Dothrak.
We did.
But it wasn't exactly... exactly. She had a belly full of horse heart and the whole place watching.
Not the most relaxing scene.
Yeah. So the people of Qarth are described as tall and pale. The Dothraki refer to them as milkmen. Dany feels self-conscious about the way she's dressed because they're all dressed what she thinks of as being lords and ladies, the way they're dressed.
Yeah.
She also stops to wonder if her khalasar are not seeing the beauty of the place. They're just seeing the potential plunder of it.
Right. Can they appreciate it for the beauty and opulence, or are they just thinking, oh man, I'd really like to sack this place?
It's like when I went to that house last week. I was like, I didn't just think, oh man, I wish this was mine. I would steal all these candles and stuff. I enjoyed it for what it was,
Right, yes, yeah. Yeah, she mentions that Drogo had always dreamed of sacking the cities in the east, such as Qarth. So that's what leads her to wonder, are my khalasar thinking the same thing? They're just thinking about sacking this place?
I'm pretty sure they are. I mean, but probably they're also thinking, like, we don't have enough of us. We'll come back. We'll come back when we're more. Take care of this. And now we know it's worth it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Pyat Pree mentions that Qarth, he tells Dany this like in the first paragraph of the chapter, that Qarth is the greatest city there ever was and ever will be, and that it's the center of the world. And he mentions a person named Sathos the Wise, who put his eyes out after seeing Qarth because he said any other place he sees from now on will be squalid and ugly. Now, I tried to look up some extra background info on Sathos, but there's nothing but this information. So that's all we got to go on. Although I do question his title, Sathos the Wise, after putting his eyes out.
I would think to his compatriots he was known as Sathos the Blind. Only with hindsight, and basically Qarthian historians would refer to him as Sathos the Wise to build up how beautiful Qarth is.
Yeah, some might call him Sathos the Impulsive.
Yes. He's the fat Tom of Essos.
Yes.
He carries a moniker that really he doesn't deserve.
Yeah. Now I mentioned in the summary that it's a thrice walled city, and it has 3 walls. There's an outer wall, middle wall, and inner wall. And the outer wall is 30 feet high, and it's made of sandstone, and it's got animals decorating it, not actual animals, but drawings and stuff of animals decorating that wall. And it has a gate that has copper bands. And then the middle wall is 40 feet high, and it's made of granite, and it has battle scenes decorating it. And its gate has iron bands. And the inner wall, I believe, is like 50 feet high or something. And it has sex scenes decorating it. And its gate is decorated with golden eyes. And I only bring this up for one point. Like, all that was leading to one point. And it's because the line goes The innermost gate was studded with golden eyes, all opened at Dany's approach. Now, what the actual description meant was all the gates opened at Dany's approach. But the line was, as I just said, it was studded with golden eyes, all opened at Dany's approach. And I wondered if maybe Martin was just giving
being a bit clever.
Yes,
clever
a little
wording.
subtlety here of, all the eyes of Pentos are on her as she enters this city.
I guess if you write 4,000 pages, eventually you're going to stumble into something. No, it's that's nicely done. I think you didn't mention that the inner walls were marble. You said that the outer ones were sandstone. And
did I forget marble? Sorry,
you missed marble, which gives them it's pretty resplendent. 50-foot walls made of marble, although presumably because of concentricness, smaller than the other two.
True.
So they could afford to go higher.
That's right. That's why it was the inner wall. They only had so much marble to spare.
Right.
Plus, it's a harbor town, so they only have to do at least 3.
They only have to do three sides. That's right. That's true.
So really, it's.
And actually, when we get to the TV show, I'm going to mention that fact because, remind me that it's a harbour town when we get to the TV show.
Mm-hmm. Will do.
So there's a tug of war for Dany's affections, I say generally with air quotes. The Pyat, Pree and XXD are taking two different approaches. XXD is a merchant. He offers her gifts from the market, jewels, crowns, silks, fancy food, music, material goods,
yes,
if you will.
Exactly.
And Pyat Pree is a sorcerer of some sort from the House of the Undying. He can offer a drink that will bring truth and wisdom, and ointments to see the spirits of the air. XXD, Xaro, maybe I can call him Xaro.
Yeah, you can call him Xaro, right. Sure.
Yeah. Xaro tells her that Pyat Pree's gifts turn to dust in the hands of the recipient.
Which is, when you're talking about non-physical gifts, it's easy to make that claim.
Yeah.
They can't actually hold the truth and wisdom. That's more of a spiritual thing.
Yeah, but
intellectual,
of course,
possibly.
Dany doesn't really want any of these things. All she wants is the capacity to get back to Westeros and win the Iron Throne.
Yes.
But it feels to me like both of these two might be able to help her in one way or another. I mean, Xaro is clearly wealthy and could give her some of the material things she needs for an invasion. And maybe Pyat Pree can give her insight, learning,
right,
how to train your dragons, that kind of thing.
Yes. Good point. But ultimately you have to question motive. Like why would they do that? It's not like the Free Cities, which are, right on the other side of the Narrow Sea from Westeros. Qarth is so far away from Westeros. What benefit would Qarthine people get helping someone take over, reclaim their kingdom a world away, basically?
Yeah.
Maybe they're hoping that she will be willing to give up a dragon or dragons in order to get the help she needs.
Obviously that's one thing. Or perhaps marry her.
Oh, yeah. Right.
To sort of marry into the dragons,
Right. Can't have your own dragons, marry into one. Sure.
But also, honestly, if someone had dragons, I would want to be their friend.
That's a good point.
Just because they've got dragons. I'd be okay with being a distant friend, but I definitely want to be their friend.
That's a solid point, yeah.
So Xaro and Pree represent two different factions of power in the city. Xaro is one of the 13.
Yeah, right. He tells her that the 13 are going to come visit her and they will set a crown of black jade and fire opals on her head. We don't get any more info about the 13 aside from they have a special name called the 13, which makes it sound like they're important. And they're going to put a crown on her head.
We are the 13 most middle people in Qarth.
Right. 13 assistants to the regional managers. Pree, on the other hand, he wants her to come to the House of the Undying, and like Simon said, drink truth and wisdom, and meet the Undying ones. So we've got this House of the Undying and Undying ones, and of course, we don't know what any of these people do, except for that one of them apparently don't die.
They don't apparently die, yes.
Yeah, maybe glean that. But
yeah.
And we also don't know if there are more parties in the city vying for power, but it seems like there's at least 2 here.
Yeah. Xaro mocks Pyat Pree's order, saying that the warlocks were once great, and they boast of power that's long been lost. He refers to the House of the Undying as a house of bones and lies.
Yeah, and when he's telling her about the warlocks, it reminded me of the pyromancers in King's Landing, that they were once great, and now they hint at power, but you never actually see them do, which is kind of what he says these warlocks are like.
Yeah, is that a common thing in history, though, to ascribe greater powers to the legends of yore than the current can have it? But historical analysis would show it probably wasn't true,
Right.
That they in fact were just like us, and in fact we've gained more knowledge than them, so we're actually wiser. It's just their achievements are told in legend, whereas our achievements are mundane and sometimes they fail,
Right. Yeah, that could very well
their
be.
failures didn't make it into the legends,
Right.
And there was that one time when he did nothing useful at all day.
Sit around, children, and listen to the tale of when the warlock did nothing useful for 100 years.
Singed off his eyebrows like an idiot.
Yeah. Xaro mentions that they sit around and drink Shade of the Evening, and which is a drink of the warlocks that turn their lips blue, which Pyat Pree has blue lips, so he must have been drinking his fill of Shade of the Evening, and they sit around and read their crumbling scrolls. So he's not too impressed. Although he's not too impressed, he's also not entirely devoid of warlock type things, because when Dany gets to his palace, he has a scrying tower and a warlock's maze, and I didn't know what the term scrying meant, so I looked it up, and it's to use an object to look into the future, like you would with a crystal ball. So, it's not entirely...
Yeah, I mean, if you treat Pyat Pree as anything more than a street charlatan, you must have some belief in magic. I mean,
right.
Otherwise, you would treat him as a charlatan, So
yeah, I get what you're saying.
So Jorah thinks that she should avoid both of these guys. He's suspicious of the whole city. He thinks that the sweet smell that they smell might well be covering a bad smell.
Yeah, that's easier said than done, though, because for one thing, they're living in Xaro's palace, so it's kind of hard to avoid him. Although it is a very large palace.
True.
So they're in the city.
But the minute you walk over his threshold, you owe him. You owe him something.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
He may let you go, but if he lets you go on one of his ships, say, then you really owe him at that point.
Right. Yeah. Dany dismisses Jorah's concerns anyway, but she does, like you said in the summary, sends Ricardo to investigate the rest of the city. So she's not, it's pretty smart. It's kind of a smart thing to do. She's very vulnerable in this city. She's, at this point, because her khalasar is so small, and now she's in the city, she's at the mercy of the inhabitants. So,
yeah. And she paraded the dragons. I mean, they were on her shoulder, or at least one of them was on.
I think
were all 3 on display? Yeah, Drogon was on her shoulder, right?
I think so.
So everybody who saw her arrival in the city now believes in the dragons. It's not just a story.
Right.
It really happened. And that's a significant deviation from the TV show where she kept them under wraps as she entered Qarth.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, she made the 13. She made them let her in without seeing the dragons. She wouldn't cross their threshold. They wouldn't let her across the threshold without revealing the dragons, but she would not reveal them. So there was a sort of standoff. I'm jumping ahead.
She was asking them to take her on faith like she has to take them on faith.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being where she is with the meager khalasar she has, if a large enough group wanted to take the dragons, there's very little she could do to stop them without help from some other faction.
Right.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes.
Right. Which is why, I mean, she's going to have to side with one of these three, either Xaro, Pyat, or Quaithe, who we haven't really mentioned. Quaithe was the third grandee who came to visit her. Yeah. She wore a red mask, and she sort of cryptically told her to beware of everyone, which makes sense and also is what they were already thinking.
Yeah, but it's a good idea, send your feelers out, find out about the culture of the city, what kind of factions are there, more than just the 13 and the Undying ones. What are people saying about her and her dragons? What are people saying about Xaro and Daxos, Pyat, Pree, and Quaithe? So yeah, it makes sense.
I do find it interesting, though, that Qarth has seemingly two quite large or powerful groups who are magical. I mean, the Pyat Pree is clearly a warlock of some sort and so has access to magic. But Quaithe represents this third group. We don't know. She didn't talk enough for us to know anything more about her. But she is a sorceress of Ashai, right?
She's a Shadowbinder. Yeah, the description mentions that.
Shadowbinder. Yeah. So, Dany is scared of her because she remembers what Mirri Maz Duur did to Dany's family.
Right, yeah.
But there's a difference here because Mirri Maz Duur promised good things, which she didn't, then delivered the opposite. Right. Whereas Quaithe is telling her, giving her sage advice, be afraid of everyone.
Yeah. So either Quaithe is playing the opposite game from the guys, from Pyat Pree and Xaro and Daxos, getting Dany to not trust them, therefore winning trust for her, and make Dany think she's really the only ally that she's got in the city. Or, maybe she's just trying to be helpful to Dany.
Neighborly.
Yes.
Welcome to Qarth. Be afraid of everyone.
Yeah, could be that too.
Including me.
Yeah, Peter Baelish wasn't afraid to tell Ned not to trust him.
Right.
So you had mentioned that Quaithe is wearing the red lacquer mask, and that red lacquer mask signifies her as a Shadowbinder from Ashai. That's kind of their usual wardrobe of choice, is the red mask. So most of them do wear the red mask, although Melisandre is a Shadowbinder from Ashai, and she does not wear a red mask. So, but then she's also a red priestess of R'hllor, so maybe they balance each other out.
Oh yeah, perhaps they're incompatible. She has to choose one or the other.
Yes, she had to choose one or the other. Yeah, but she's smart to be wary of Quaithe because Shadowbinders are considered the most sinister sorcerers in Ashai. So, want to keep that one close eye on her.
And Mirri Maz Duur said that when she was younger, she studied with the Shadowbinders, so that same magic that was used against Dany. But again, it was powerful magic. It wasn't nothing what Mirri Maz Duur did.
Oh yeah, right, definitely.
But that came from the Shadowbinders of Ashai. And there is a connection between the Shadowbinders and dragons, right? Bran had a dream that at Ashai by the shadow, he saw the dragons stir beneath the sunrise.
Yes, so exactly. Yeah, so we don't know exactly what, that was a dream, but yeah, there's some sort of connection there.
Yeah. So Quaithe, well, I think she's right. She should be Dany should beware of everyone, but Quaithe is definitely one just as scary as the other two.
Yes, I agree.
So she sends Jorah to the harbour to find news of Westeros and possibly a ship to take them there. Jorah doesn't think it's a good idea. He thinks the usurper will kill her as soon as she lands. Of course, it is funny, we're only on Daenerys 2, we're on chapter 27, because we've all known for ages. I mean, like, we've known since way back in the last book that Robert is dead. But the nature of the long distances here, the news has not reached her. So, Jorah is quite wrong to worry about Robert at this point.
Yes. Of course, he doesn't know yet because he hasn't met with Kahuru Mo. But he's right. I mean, if Robert was alive, it would be... it would probably not be a good idea to just take her and her 100, maybe 50 strong khalasar, whatever's left after making through the Red Waste. But
leaping to the end of the chapter, do you think, knowing now what she knows, it is accurate, although they don't know how accurate, do you think now it might be a good idea to just bolt to Westeros as they are? Yeah. Bolt to Westeros as you are.
Right.
Find a friendly place. Hunker down. Let the internecine fighting go on between the Starks, the Lannisters, and the Baratheons. Grow the dragons.
Right. Yes.
And reveal yourself at the end of it to weakened opponents, you know.
Right.
You may not need a khalasar at that point.
I was thinking the same thing, and I was trying to think of a good landing spot, and the best option I could come up with was Dorne, of course, because they're kind of separate.
I did not know what you were going to say, but as you said it, I was like, well, if I were them, I'd choose Dorne.
Right, yeah.
Because Dorne doesn't have as much loyalty to the current throne as other places.
Elia Martell was her sister-in-law,
exactly.
So it's remote. You wouldn't want to go to the Riverlands or the Reach, you know. Right,
because everyone would know about you day one. Right.
But if you're down in Sunspear or even somewhere more remote in Dorne, you know, you might be able to hide out there and put together a plan and build an army and let your dragons grow and all that stuff.
Right. So, I mean, that's an option that's open to them. They could definitely take that option.
Yeah.
So anyway, Dany relaxes in the pool. She feels good for the first time since Vaes Tolorro. She guesses that the Red Keep must have such fancy pools and beautiful gardens. She is...
We don't know all the details of the Red Keep, but her great whatever uncle Maegor was not known as Maegor the Pool Boy. So you know, but for her wedding gift, Jorah gave her a book of histories and songs of the Seven Kingdoms. So I guess she hasn't picked up that chapter yet.
Yeah, but I mean, it might not mention the pool. You know, I mean, you could describe Qarth without mentioning.
Yes, but you might mention Maegor and his tendencies.
That's true.
Although Jorah giving this to a Targaryen might have left that book out of the collection.
Yes. The Targaryens were always wonderful.
Yes,
everybody loved them. So Dany considers Westeros. She originally wanted Drogo to sweep away her enemies, but now she's reconsidering, you know, especially just being in Qarth. She's thinking, well, this is what a beautiful city could be.
Right.
It's nicer than Vaes Tolorro. Dothraki's sacked the cities and she wants to rule them, so it probably wouldn't have worked out between her and Drogo taking Westeros anyway.
Yes, which we talked about at least we talked about it in the chapter when they were in Vaes Tolorro, and he said, we're gonna get you back to your iron chair, I think he called it. We talked about how that's exactly what would happen if she took the Dothraki to Westeros. That's what they would do.
Yeah.
Sack and plunder.
Yeah.
And
she wants people to smile at her, and Viserys told her that they used to smile at their father.
Right.
But we're not sure that that's true. We think that's probably... I mean, if it is, it was probably out of fear. Like...
You know, we've been hearing more about... In the past 2 chapters, we've seen some evidence of the small folk maybe caring a little more for Aerys Targaryen than we would have guessed based on the Mad King moniker. But, you know, a lot of when the realm was really flourishing under his reign, most of that was due to Tywin Lannister as Hand of the King. So what they're thinking of as, the good times, the good old times with Aerys Targaryen might have actually been the good old times with Tywin Lannister.
Interesting.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
Yeah. And I guess a lot of Aerys' most mad things were against sort of like other lords and his plot, which never came to fruition, to blow up King's Landing, you know.
Yes.
Had that happened, he might not have been as well remembered. But...
Yeah, seems likely. Right. Yeah. So before she meets Kahuro Mo, she's thinking about the formidable Westeros force of Robert Baratheon, Ned Stark, and the Lannisters standing together, and she's thinking, my khalasar, my meager little khalasar, my dragons might not even be enough to win back my throne. And then she thinks that Viserys believed the realm would rise for their rightful king, but she knows, she's learned by now, that Viserys was foolish and therefore believed in foolish things. So that kind of goes back to what we were talking about if she went to Dorne or somewhere hospitable that she could gather those around her.
The one thing I'll say about her thinking there is that she is comparing her dragons to her elder brother Rhaegar. Rhaegar was known as the last dragon, but he literally was a person.
Right.
Her dragons are literally dragons. I mean, there is a difference.
You got a good point.
I think her khalasar and her dragons would be enough to bend the knees of the Starks, the Lannisters, and the Baratheons. Yes. Once they're full grown. I mean,
right.
They're
That's
still
what I was going to
babies
say.
Now, and the khalasar is very small right now, but their original khalasar plus the dragons would have been plenty to do this. I'm thinking that the dragons, once full grown, will be plenty.
Yeah, I mean, even if they physically couldn't if they couldn't just use the dragons physically to take back the realm, the fact that she has dragons, the Targaryens are back with dragons, would probably be enough to sway enough people to her side.
Yes.
Because they don't want to tempt fate. They don't want to mess with the idea of, do we think we can beat the 3 dragons?
Right. And the nice thing about coming with a small force and 3 fire-breathing dragons is that you can just target your enemies. You can fly over their armies.
Right.
And just burn them to a crisp.
Solid point, yeah. Could make Harrenhal the norm in town.
Right. But actually, what you just said there is a very interesting point. However, between you saying it and me saying it was a very good point, I've forgotten what it was.
Most people forget my interesting points. Don't feel bad. Well, while you're thinking about it, I'll say that, like I was saying, that the other armies in Westeros coming to her side when they see that she's got dragons, the Martells might be willing to be the first to come to support her and hope to get a lot of goodwill by rallying to her first.
I think especially because the Martells always sort of like maintained a independence. They were well treated by the Targaryens relative to other families, and were able to keep their prince and princess titles, right, where others were stripped of those.
Because they were so defiant for so long that when Daenerys finally brought them into the realm, it was through peaceful means of, yes, you can maintain your terms, prince and princess. Right.
But yeah, I do think if I were a sort of minor lord, or perhaps one of the major lords, but in a perhaps neutral, I'm thinking of the Tyrells here, who've hitched their wagon to Renly's cause, I know, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be adaptable if necessary. If Daenerys comes back with the dragons, like you say, she doesn't even have to use them. It's just the fact that the Targaryens took the throne 300 years ago, and they made us the Lords of the Reach, because we weren't the Lords of the Reach before the Targaryens came, and now we are. And now we killed them, we usurped them, and it was fine, it was the right thing to do, because Aerys was mad. But they came back with dragons again. Clearly, the gods are speaking to us. The gods are saying, that's what should be on the throne. I would crumble in a heartbeat if I was a minor lord or I wasn't actively involved in the fight for the throne right now.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what you said many episodes ago, that, with the realm in chaos, dragons reemerge. the fact that the realm is in chaos might make it even more likely for them to say, you know
Right.
what, we need the Targaryens are back with dragons. We're just siding with them.
Yeah, yeah. All Dany's thinking changes anyway when they get the news from Qohora Mo. His ship is the Cinnamon Wind, is that right?
Right. Yes.
He's come out of Old Town. He's from the Summer Isles originally.
Yeah, Tall Trees Town, which I did some background in, I think, Tyrion 3 of this book, where we talked about the Chitaya and Aliyaya chapter.
Ah, yes. Right, yeah.
So Tall Trees Town was one of the towns I mentioned in that background.
So Qohora Mo has heard the story of Robert's death. He did hear it was war, but he also heard he was betrayed by his wife, by his brother, by his hand of the king, Ned. But
2 of 4. The boar and the wife.
Yes, for sure.
50-50, right?
Jorah scoffs at the idea of Ned being a traitor, saying the long summer come again before he'll besmirch his honour. So that's grudging respect from Jorah for his...
Right.
But actually, of course, he misjudged his audience, because his audience was Daenerys, who thinks of Ned as an utter traitor.
Absolutely right.
He fought and deposed her father. So,
yes, that's her response. What honor could he have? He's a traitor to the true king. But of course, she's saying that to Jorah, who fought on the rebel side during Robert's Rebellion. So they're both like kind of missing their mark here.
Yeah. So Dany is happy and not surprised that Robert's dogs are fighting each other, meaning the Starks, the Lannisters, the Baratheons. She likens it to Drogo's khalasar falling apart after his death. It's, like we said, a great opportunity for the Targaryen re-emergence, but the dragons are too small. If this happened in a few years' time, it would be better. Now, she could bide her time in Essos and wait a couple of years. The dragons will grow. It doesn't look like things are going to resolve themselves quickly and easily in Westeros.
Doesn't look it, no.
But
it makes me think back to when Varys and Illyrio were talking of, in the dungeon when Arya was overhearing them, and they were talking of instability in the realm being too soon. Now that was said before the dragons hatched, and certainly before news of the dragons hatching, because that certainly hasn't really happened yet in Westeros. Now, Illyrio did give Dany the eggs, but he couldn't have known those were real eggs, right? I mean, that would have been an incredibly priceless gift to give someone.
I think they were petrified. Did he hope that Dany or Viserys could bring them to life? I don't know. That feels like magical thinking to me, but it happened, so...
Right. Well, my only thought about it is that maybe he could have felt that only a Targaryen could have brought these. If they were going to hatch, it would only be under the ownership of a Targaryen, and so maybe. But it doesn't seem like that would be enough of a reason for him to be talking about instability too soon in the realm.
Yeah, probably. Yes, I don't think he was thinking the dragons would hatch. I think he was thinking more a matter of Dany and Drogo forming an alliance that could go there. And, he's thinking maybe that the dragon eggs are just totems of her Targaryenness and of her connection to Aegon the Conqueror.
Right. Yes, I think you're absolutely right there. Yeah. It's just coincidental that we're talking about the instability, unfortunately, coming too soon, which is exactly what Illyrio and Varys were talking about as well.
Yeah. So Dany wonders if Viserys might have been a bit wiser if he'd known that his vengeance on Robert would come so soon. If they'd stayed in Pentos, as Mapatis had suggested.
He wouldn't have had an army, of course, because Drogo ended up dying, but, but he would have gotten his vengeance. He would have seen the usurper die, and him being alive and being in Pentos, so close to Westeros, might have caused some to rally to him like he always thought they would. It might actually have happened. But, it goes back to, if he knew then what we know now, would he have had the emotional intelligence to be patient enough and better behaved with the Dothraki?
I'm going to take a swing at that. No, Viserys would not. Yeah, I mean, I think he would have rushed back without allies and tried to bully people into being his allies, and somebody else would have killed him very much the same way that Drogo did.
Right. Yeah, she tells Kahuro Mo that her husband Drogo killed Viserys with a crown of molten gold. And I was thinking, if I were Kahuro, I'd be like, come again? Not heard of that method of death before. He did what now?
I think you can put it together. Head, molten gold. That would probably do it. You're right. Good point. So you make an interesting point here in the notes. I'm going to steal your point. I will attribute it. There's a very sort of Christianity thing going on here. That the three bigwigs of Qarth come out following the star in the sky to visit then the newborn wonder that comes from its mother, who is not actually its mother in some ways.
Right. Yeah,
I'm getting a lot of Christian vibes off this, you know.
Right. It definitely had a Three Wise Men feel when those, you know, when Quaithe, Xaro, Xhoan, Daxos, and Pyat Pree show up in the desert when Dany's following the star. And you could certainly understand why she has some thoughts that, you know, she has a destiny here. Because, you know...
She followed a star?
Yes, all this kind of leads to a feel of destiny. Yeah. I mean, even
And the Three Wise Men are bearing gifts as well, you know.
Right. Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, whether they're opportunists who just followed up a claim of dragons successfully and now want to capitalize, or they were sent, you know, by the gods to help her on the next leg of her destiny is, you know, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But you could just certainly see why she's tying her greater purpose of her destiny for a greater purpose with this comet, because the timing was pretty spot on. Right,
and she did walk into a fire with dragon eggs and walk back out with dragons.
Yes,
that's a trump card in the "I think I was born for this" argument.
She, aside from being from emerging bald, she was otherwise unscathed. So yeah, that happening on the same night that the comet arrives in the sky, you know, definitely. Even the most humble straight shooter might think, you know, there might be something going on here.
I know she's got like the dragons and things, but I am good with people, and I'm something of a perfectionist. If you'd like me as your future ruler, yeah, no, she's got a claim, that's for sure. So Jorah. Caution, yes. So she tells Kahuro Mo, that's right.
Yeah, Kahuro Mo.
Kahuro Mo. She tells Kahuro Mo to come visit her when she's on the Iron Throne. She's going to reward him for this great news that he's brought her. When he leaves, Jorah says, "Hey, you shouldn't be speaking that freely about this," but she's intentionally doing it. She wants word of the fact that she's coming home to be spread around the globe. She wants everyone to know that this is happening. She's a little bit irked that Jorah sees her as sort of like a daughter and a lover and other things, but not really as a queen yet.
Right.
He's more than an advisor. He feels like he's leading her, and she feels like she doesn't need that anymore.
Yeah, and she reminds him that she's the blood of the dragon, and he reminds her, so is Rhaegar, and he's dead. So, you know, sometimes bloodlines and prophecies aren't always enough to carry the day, I guess is his message there.
If I were her, every time someone mentioned Rhaegar's name, I would just feed a little crumb of something to one of the dragons on my shoulders and go,
Yeah.
Last what are you dragon, saying
about that last dragon? Oh, because I count 1, 2, 3.
He was the last dragon, but 3.
Yes.
Do you got some background for us? That's bad English on purpose, I'm sorry. Do you have some background for us?
I do have some background. So, Pyat Pree called Qarth the gate between the north and the south, the bridge between the east and the west. And, you know, maybe from his perspective, it splits the north and the south, but it's technically on the southern shore of Essos, so there's a whole lot of territory to the north.
The north being the land and the south being the sea.
Right, yes. If you're counting the water, I guess. But from the east-west thing, it definitely is a gate of sorts. So it sits on what's known as the Jade Gates, which is a narrow strait that separates the Summer Sea from the Jade Sea. So pretty much any ship traveling east from the Summer Sea has to pass through this strait. And because of its favorable location, that the city gets so much of its wealth, because it taxes the ships that travel this strait. So, Qohora Mo told Dany that he won't be going to Westeros for at least a year, as the Cinnamon Wind is traveling the Trader's Circle around the Jade Sea. And so, due to the direction of the prevailing wind, the Trader's Circle moves clockwise, starting at the Jade Gates in Qarth, and then from Qarth it goes east to Yeti.
The Jade Gates being kind of like 12 o'clock.
Yes. You think of the Jade Gates as being like 12 o'clock. Then it moves east to Yeti, including Azabad and Yin, and then on to a city called Lang. And some, if they're brave enough, might stop at Ashae. But then if not, you move on to Zabhad and Port of Morak on the southern return leg of the route, which will take you back to the Summer Sea.
Huh, interesting. Well, in comparison with the television show, the scene is quite different than the TV show. So, sort of tracing back to where we were, Kovaro, who's her blood rider, replacing Jogo, they changed the name for some reason, comes back to the khalasar alone, with news of Qarth, but nobody with him, just him.
Right.
And so they all head to Qarth, and at the door they are greeted by soldiers and the 13. The 13 includes Pyat Pree.
Okay. Pyat Pree, not Xaro.
It also includes Xaro as well.
Okay.
But the spokesman for the 13, who we don't get his name because he says it's too hard for foreigners to pronounce, but he says that he's a spice merchant, so he's known as the Spice King, demands to see the dragons before allowing the Dothraki through the gate, saying, "We are a city, the Dothraki terrorize us. The last thing we're going to do is open the gates just because you say you've got dragons."
Right.
He's got a point.
He does.
Daenerys refuses to show them. She points to the horse that's carrying them, but they're covered over and you can't see them. He denies her entry. She says that they're going to die. But then she says...
They meaning her and her people. Or if you don't let us in, we're going to die.
In actual fact, Jorah sort of presages all this by saying that the land around Qarth is known as the Sea of Bones, because anyone who doesn't get entry dies because there's nowhere else to eat or drink, so you die. Immediately after saying that she's going to die, she then says she's going to get her revenge on them. Once the dragons are big, she'll come back and burn Qarth. The Spice King points out the logical fallacy of what she's just said. Right. Either you die or you come and extract revenge.
One or the other.
At that point, Xaro steps forward and offers her his home and hospitality. He does a sort of blood oath that trumps the rest of their opinion. He cuts his hand and they all have to agree with him at that point. So the 13 remain silent and she's allowed to enter. We see the gates open and we see the inside and she's stunned by the beauty of the city, but then we cut away and we don't see her going through the city because that would just be too much scenery to pay for. So,
right, sure. Does it have 3 walls?
Not obviously. When the first door opens, you can see down a thoroughfare which might have had gates in it, but you can see all the way to the sea. But then that brings me to the sort of pedantry part of this. So I'll sort of merge straight into pedantry here.
Okay.
I don't see any pedantry in the book, but I have a couple of pieces of pedantry for the TV show.
Does this have to do with me reminding you that it's a harbor town? A harbor city?
Yes. Okay. In fact, my description just there just reminded me actually of what I was what you were going to remind me of, which is people shouldn't die of thirst and starvation that close to the sea. Okay, I get it. The sea is not a source of drinking water, but you're at the sea. You're at the seaside. You can...
catch some fish, maybe?
Catch fish, at least. That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
But the funny thing is, the scene is weird, because the scene, when you see them discussing in front of the gates, it's pure desert. And then the gates open, you can see the sea. And you're like, well, can I not just walk around this wall instead of, and see the sea? It looks like they're in the middle of the desert, but the sea seems to be contained inside the city. It's very strange.
I get what you're saying, yeah.
It's a strange thing. So 2 other bits of pedantry from the TV show. Daenerys accidentally calls it Quarth, and the Spice King corrects her and says Qarth. She would only make that mistake if she'd seen it written down.
Oh, good point.
You would only mispronounce that if you'd seen it written down.
Yeah, you'd see the QA.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I get it.
And then the bit that the Spice King himself points out is the fallacy of saying, we'll all die out here, and then I'm going to come and burn you to death, once my
Ghost dragon. She's talking about ghost dragons, man.
Let's see. So yeah, the TV show missed the plot on this one a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
News and notes.
Well, so George Martin posted his commencement speech at Northwestern's Medill School of Journalism to YouTube. And I watched the whole thing this Saturday. That's how exciting my Saturdays are these days. I found it both inspiring and interesting. It's
very good.
The basic gist is about facts versus truths. And, the importance of it, especially in this social media age. So it's cool. It's worth checking out. It's like 24 minutes long, but I found it interesting.
I'm with him on that one.
Yeah. I posted it on our Facebook page, our Twitter account, and on the Discord server. So if you want to check it out, it is on there.
Cool.
And also there's more churn in the Game of Thrones spinoff world as far as TV shows go. It appears the Flea Bottom series idea has died. But 2 new animated series concepts have bubbled up. One is yet unknown, as best I can tell, regarding the subject matter. But for the other, words leaked that it would take place in Yeti, which I just mentioned in the background here.
Way east in Essos, right?
Yes, exactly. Now, I haven't heard a great deal about Yeti yet, but what we do know in the show, in the book so far, we've just heard reference to the name, but it seems to be inspired by Imperial China. So, that's very different than medieval Westeros, or medieval Europe, which kind of is the basis of Westeros.
Is he involved in any of these?
I don't know about... Well, some of them he is. Yeah, some of the shows. I don't know what his level of involvement is with these in such early stages. Yeah. But
because it feels like he didn't write much about E.T. That's like... E.T. was just a throwaway, he was probably thinking, like China,
Yeah, there's some more info in like a World of Ice and Fire. You get a little more info there. And like Corlys Valerian, I think he went to E.T. in one of the stories in Fire and Blood. But yeah, you're right. So far, there's not a whole lot about E.T. other than it's a city far east. But that leaves, to my count, the total of shows in varying stages of development from this world, from A Song of Ice and Fire world, at around 7-ish. That including the tourney at Harrenhal play that Martin is working with. So I don't imagine all 7 are going to make it.
From Apple Podcasts, Mikos1 said, "Great podcast, very informative and explains every detail of every chapter." Thank you, Mikos. That's very kind of you.
I hope sometimes it's not too much detail.
Oh, we fly close to that wind, I'm sure. All right. So in conclusion, Pyat, Pree, and Xaro, Xhoan, Daxos. Did I get that right?
Xaro, Xhoan, Daxos. Yeah, you were
Daxos. Xaro, Xhoan, Daxos. We need to write it out in the notes. That would help. Because I see it every time. Because I see XXD, I'm like, I'm never going to remember it. So Pyat, Pree, and Xaro, Xhoan, Daxos.
You got it, yeah.
Falling over themselves to please Dany. Is it out of the good of their hearts? I think we can rule that one out. This is A Song of Ice and Fire.
Right.
There's no goodness in any hearts.
No, not so much. But Quaithe, on the other hand, she says beware, and Jorah agrees. And they're smart to do so.
I see them giving each other a high five.
Yeah. He says she speaks the truth, although I like her no more than the other two. So, Dany, she's aware she needs to be careful. So she's just going to have to be. She's going to have to assume that whoever she's meeting might be trying to pull a fast one on her.
Right. And as you said, they're so far from Westeros that they can't just want this to happen out of the goodness of their hearts because they're afraid of what might happen if they don't. Right. They want something in return for this. For any help they give her, they're going to want something in return. If
she goes back and takes over Westeros and they weren't very helpful, she might be irked, but I don't think she's going to fly across Essos to...
Exactly.
Unless they're terrible to her.
Yes.
Quaithe did not seem to be as captivated by the dragons. Now, that could just been the red mask. You know, she might have a really solid poker face with that red mask. And
it would help, presumably.
Now, you know, she is from Asshai, and that's where we know Bran saw dragons stirring over by Asshai. So, don't know what that means yet, but is she shooting Dany true? Or is she playing some sort of long game here to try and get Dany to trust her and distrust everyone else? We'll have to see, I guess.
Yeah. She's out of the Red Waste and into Qarth, which definitely seems like better than the Red Wastes, but now she's got potential enemies around her. But potential friends too. I mean, obviously, she can use her celebrity to her benefit here.
Yeah. It definitely puts her in a vulnerable, rather defenseless position, but she's got assets that either they're just going to take from her if they wanted to, or you know, maybe she can work out a deal because she has these dragons.
Yeah,
or at least garner some protection.
Yeah. And then I think we get the reason why we haven't been doing much Dany chapters in this book is because we've been waiting for this moment to appear when it made sense for the news of Robert's death to have reached this far.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah.
We wanted Dany to find this out, but we couldn't find it out. She couldn't find it out immediately because how would she? But by bringing her to Qarth after all this time, the news would have got there. But Jorah thinks nothing's changed. Thinks that Joffrey's rule has not changed anything. But Dany's perspective is that she's seen what a khalasar can do to itself when its Khal dies. She's thinking the same thing is happening in Westeros, and these smaller khalasars are ripe for the taking now.
Yeah. She thinks everything's changed. Jorah says nothing's changed. She says it's all changed. It's a big mess over there right now. It's a perfect opportunity for me to swoop in and reclaim my throne.
Yeah.
Now, you know, we know that Joff is not the heir, but he does sit the throne. So, if the Lannisters can win the war in time, they could possibly stabilize the realm, which, you know, her dragons would be too young to be of much use if he stabilized the realm in a...
It's hard to imagine it being a happy realm, though.
Oh, yeah, right, sure.
I mean, unless...
You know, you reward your loyalists with the seats of power of those who were not loyal to you, and then those new people are happy because you rewarded them with greater power and wealth. So,
but that's pretty major because, you know, to actually unseat a great house is pretty significant. It hasn't really happened for 300 years. Yeah, I mean,
right? Yes, yeah, yeah. Well, I guess the last time, you know, during Robert's rebellion, Robert was fairly gracious and generous with his forgiveness of the houses that fought on the Targaryen side, but there were a few houses that paid the price. Like
I mean, the Targaryens, I suppose.
Well, yes, Targaryens were definitely one. Yes, but you know, like we've been saying, her dragons might be too young to help fight, but their simple presence could sway hearts and minds to her cause.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's a very good point. We have been hearing rumblings about the people longing for Targaryen rule. At first we dismissed those, but now we've seen them firsthand, or read them firsthand. So people do seem to... Well, I mean, hey, if you lived through a peaceful, prosperous time, and now you are being frog-marched into slavery at Harrenhal, you probably do pine for the peaceful, prosperous time, and you associate that with Targaryens, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And, of course, like I was saying earlier, it's possible that the prosperous time under Aerys that they're remembering was actually Tywin's policies and decision making. And of course, if the realm stabilizes, Tywin would be the de facto ruler while his crazy grandson is not of age. So they might see happier times in the realm again if, Tywin can get
he has to
up.
curb his murderousness. I mean, that's the thing. It's maybe he didn't have. Maybe that's always there in his Hand of the King. He couldn't display it, and now he feels like he can. But that is not the way to win hearts and minds.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Everything going on in the Riverlands is just unnecessary violence and torture. But if he squashes the other armies and the other contenders for the realm, he no longer has to behave in such a manner. He can, try and smooth things over. Say it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was Gregor.
Yeah.
All right. So, you got anything else?
No.
All right. Well then, as always, you can reach us at ghosts.harrenhal@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at @GhostHarrenHall. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Discord.
And don't forget to leave us a review. If you give us a nice review, we will definitely read it out on the show.
That's right.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.